we're interrupting our Florida series to bring you some information that we think would be helpful for you in planning your travel this spring. If you're new to our channel, my name is Deb and I'm usually with my husband Phil, but today you're just stuck with me and I'm going to share with you our top destinations in the US for spring travel. We have traveled our home country of the United States extensively. So this past year, we took a leap into full-time travel and visited a ton of different places that were brand new to us, including a lot of places in the spring. We've traveled to 48 out of 50 US states, 27 US national parks, and actually I just counted it up today. We've been to 42 of the top 50 metropolitan areas in the US. So not only have we explored kind of those natural areas extensively, we've also explored several of the biggest cities in the US as well. So we have lots of thoughts on which destinations are best for April and May, that kind of springtime travel. Our first destination I want to talk to you about is actually the Skagit Valley of Washington. So this is on the western coast of Washington, about an hour north of Seattle, and it is an area that is known for massive fields of tulips. So April is actually the time of the Skagit Valley Tulip Festival, and Phil and I actually stumbled upon this festival when we visited a couple of years ago, and it was absolutely magical. I am not exactly somebody that loves tulips. I think they're pretty, but they're not my favorite flower. But when you see thousands and thousands of rows of tulips, there is just something about that that is absolutely breathtaking. It was incredible. The area does get a little congested that time of year naturally, so you would need to plan accordingly, but it's beautiful and it's kind of a pathway to be able to explore Seattle and Seattle's food scene, as well as several national parks in the area too. The second place that we would recommend for springtime travel is kind of a random one, to be honest with you, because people think of it completely at the other end of the year, and that is Salem, Massachusetts. So it's just kind of happenstance that we visited Salem in the spring last year, but we ended up falling in love. The spring is obviously not the high tourist season for Salem. That would be in October. But if you go in the spring, you really get kind of this peaceful experience of the city. It's easy to navigate. You don't have troubles with parking or getting in different places. And a lot of the city is in bloom. So you get all of these little pops of color. It was just kind of magical actually in its own way to visit in the spring. And there's something about seeing like the lighthouses and those kind of soft springtime colors in that area of the Northeast is just a really nice and tranquil experience, at least in my opinion. The next one is one that we've talked about already as being one of our most underrated spots in the US, but it is a perfect destination for the spring, and that is Twin Falls, Idaho. Again, one of those places we were just traveling through and ended up staying at Twin Falls for a couple of nights and really fell in love. But the big reason that springtime is the best time to visit Twin Falls is because of the snowmelt. The snowmelt makes the falls absolutely monumental. They're just flowing so heavily. It's a perfect time to visit. So when we visited, it seriously looked like almost like Niagara Falls, but really up close and personal just because of how much water was flowing over the falls. We did have some friends that went and visited later in the year, and they sent us pictures, and let me just say that the falls looked quite a bit different from when we saw them. There were a lot of barren rocks with no water flowing over them. So I think if you're going to Twin Falls, you should definitely go after the snow melt, making late spring a perfect time to visit. Another big one for us is Mount Desert Island, Maine. That is the island where Acadia National Park is located. And if you visit in the spring, the crowds really haven't set in yet, but the azaleas are also in full bloom. So you get that benefit of getting to see the national park without the crowds and getting to see the azalea gardens that are blooming. I mean, honestly, the whole thing is just majestic. Of course, if we're talking about great places to visit in the spring, we've got to talk about the places that get really hot in the summer. And our favorite springtime hot destination is Phoenix, Arizona. It's one of our favorite places in the US because it's surrounded by mountains. If you have mountains and good weather, you've got lots of potential for exploring some of those natural kind of things. So you can go hiking, you can really enjoy patio season in a way that is harder to do when it's, like 115 degrees, which we've been to Phoenix in the heat and it does get hot. But it's a dry heat, and it is a dry heat, but it's still a hot, dry heat. Plus, the desert is in bloom in late spring. So all of the cacti have flowers that come to life. They're much more green than they are the rest of the year just because they haven't been scorched by the heat yet. And so it is a perfect time to take in the desert landscapes and really see the colors of the desert. Definitely talking myself into a trip to Phoenix right now. Another place to visit in the spring, kind of along that same line, is New Orleans, Louisiana. So you're obviously getting the cooler temperatures in the spring in New Orleans than you would in the summer, but the big thing is the humidity. The humidity hasn't quite set in yet in the spring as much as it does in the summer when it's hard to walk like a block of the French Quarter without drenching your shirt because you're super covered in sweat. New Orleans is our favorite food city in the whole United States. It's so rich in culture and such an amazing place to go. And if you have the added benefit of being able to go when the crowds are low, but the weather is nice, just an A+ all around in our book. Unless you are like us and you happen to pick a day where there's a tornado and it floods and then you're stuck on the 4th floor of a parking garage. But hopefully you won't be like us and you'll just get to enjoy a perfect weather experience in New Orleans. A couple of other shout outs for that kind of thing. Big Bend National Park, we visited in the spring and it was perfect and the weather was perfect. South Florida is a great spot to visit in the spring because of weather. Basically any place that gets really hot in the summer, the springtime is going to be a great time to go. Those are our top destinations for springtime travel. If you're headed somewhere else, let us know in the comments where you like to go in the spring, because honestly, we're still planning our springtime travel and we're looking for destinations as well. We want to hear from you if you plan on going to any of these places. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it and subscribe to follow along and see our adventures from Tampa, Florida that are coming this Sunday. Bye.